Hello, my name is Johnny Best, and welcome to a Terragen 2 welcome to a Terragen 2 tutorial. In this video tutorial, I'll be showing you how to create this planet scene right here, and that's obviously with no colors. So it's actually a pretty easy scene to create. In Terragen 2, you can simply move your camera upwards, so you go out of the atmosphere, and then basically you're in a space scene, and then you can sort of create your scene from there, which is what we'll do. So to start with, you've got to open up a new project, and this is always the default scene. Just gotta show it first. Just basically the exact same view with the exact same terrain and atmosphere, which is no atmosphere practically. I mean, no clouds, no mountains or anything like that, no water, and the lighting is always the same. So we're gonna have to do some camera fiddling. So going over here to this button right here, we're gonna press that, and now we're just going to go out of the atmosphere. And an easy way to make sure that we're doing that is just go to different mode, because in the terrain mode you won't be able to see any atmosphere or colors that you can see in this viewport. So we're gonna go higher. We're gonna move our camera upwards by using these two things right here, move up and move down. So we're gonna move up. So I'm actually gonna see this little squares right here. I'm just gonna click that one, the fifth square there, which means that now the camera will be moving upwards faster. Now if you look, it's moving up at a larger increment. So let's see how we are now. We're pretty high up in the air. I'm just gonna find a good camera spot to go at. Now this is obviously a very much of an optional step, because not optional, a step which you can what's the word, suit to your needs or your way you want it to look. So now I'm going to zoom out a little bit, and this will actually distort the edges of the camera when it's rendered. So you just press that. It's going to start distorting the edges of the camera. And later I'll be adding a planet right here, and that will, I'm going to actually move it back to the normal amount so I don't have to deal with the large increments anymore. So toward the end, I'm actually going to move that down a little bit. So I think this is a pretty good view here. Just fiddling with it obviously, and I'm going to press this button right here, copy this view to the current render camera. This will all allow this, so that this view we've just created here will actually be the view. In other words, it will render this view, because at the moment, or before I press that, it would have just, because the camera was there, or was just right there, and now it's right here. Because actually we weren't moving the camera, we were just moving this 3D viewport thing. And or not, I guess just the viewport, and now we've actually applied this view to the camera. Make sure you do that, but otherwise you'll be wondering why you're not seeing that view. So now we're out in space, and now we can start creating stuff. You could have done this in the beginning, but I just wanted to get the right camera view first, because that's important. So now I'm going to go to the terrain, creating a mountain area. And if you notice, now all the color has gone away. That is because the focus is the terrain, and we don't need all that stuff to see the terrain. In fact, it might get in the way. So go to Add Terrain and do Power Fractal. This will add a fractal terrain to our scene. I'm going to increase this feature scale to 65,000. Okay, this basically will make them bigger, the mountains bigger. And I'm going to go over to this displacement and change the displacement amplitude to about 25,000. Okay, this is going to make the mountains kind of noticeable from the air. I'm also going to change the seed to 11,039. Seed just defines the way it looks and not really anything when it comes to settings. Now, always that's optional. You could just leave it as it is. In fact, that might not even have been a necessary step. But nonetheless, if you change the seed, then the mountains will look different. All the settings will be the same, but if you don't like the way the mountains look, then you can always change that seed. So now if you see, once it got better quality, you can see that the mountains are now, you can see them. The mountains right there. We just created some mountains, and if you went back to the ground in the atmosphere, then you could start seeing these mountains that would look exactly like mountains practically. Now, if you want to create more realistic mountains, rather than Power Fractal is good for this, but it's quick and not always the most realistic step. If you wanted to create much more realistic mountains, you could use this Alpine Fractal right here, which will create realistic mountains for sure. However, it takes much longer to render. So I stuck with Power Fractal and just fiddled with settings to get a result like this, because the Power Fractal is definitely faster than the Alpine Fractal. So don't worry about the Alpine Fractal. If you stick with the Power Fractal, you'll get much faster render times, especially since we're not going to be really focusing on the mountains much. So it's finished rendering this 3D viewport here, so you can see a lot of kind of detail in here, and it's what we want. Next thing, go to the atmosphere, and we're going to add a low-level cumulus 3D volumetric cloud layer. Okay, so we're mostly going to be leaving these settings as default. However, I'm going to change the depth of this. Oh, and by the way, I am using Terragen 2.2 because this right here is a new feature, localized thing. However, I'm not going to be using it. So, just increase that cloud depth right there. And also, I'm going to go to the tweak. No, I'm not going to go to the tweaks. Go over here to this area right here, the node place, where all the node stuff goes on. We're not going to be doing anything complicated, don't worry. Go to the density fractal right here, because if you look at go to the atmosphere and then go to see this cumulus layer, a density fractal is attached to it. So double click on that, and there we go. Go to the tweak noise of this density fractal, and we're going to change the noise stretch XYZ to 2. Now this will, stretch it a little bit on the X. It will stretch it on X. So it's going to distort it a little bit. Okay, and go back to the terrain. And go back to the atmosphere. You're not going to change that to 2. You're going to go to the atmosphere right here. Terragen 2 froze that for a second. Go to the atmosphere. You want to change. I did stretch it too little. Change the X to 10 and the Y to 10. Okay. And also, once you've done that, go to the terrain. Go to the tweak noise of the terrain and change the X to 2. 2. So now it's going to stretch the terrain a little bit on the X, and then with the clouds, it'll stretch it a lot, actually. Okay, now we're going to do something with the lighting. Go to the sunlight in the lighting area, and we're going to bring the elevation down. Not that low, maybe. And then also we're going to change the heading so that we can actually see this. See about right there. Now, this will drastically change the way this looks, like that. I guess I gotta bring the elevation up a little more. And add a lot in shadow. And oops, that's too much. Maybe I gotta bring this camera view up a little bit. Move back a little bit. Alright, that looks much better. Now, I think that really takes care of. Oh, just copy that. That really takes care of all this planet right here, practically. Yeah, the next thing to do is add a planet right here, because basically we've taken care of this entire planet, and I thought it was pretty easy actually. Hope you weren't disappointed. So, what we're going to do is we're going to add a new planet. And if you look, you can see it's already there. However, I'm going to change this radius of it to 6 plus 006. 6E. Sorry. I don't know what that means, but just do that. Also, I'm going to turn down this elevation, so I have a little more control over it, and bring this heading over here a little bit, and then bring the distance, bring it closer to the planet. Actually, if I get too close to the planet, you'll notice that it casts a shadow on it. I noticed that was kind of funny. Look. Okay, well that's too close. But if you bring it too close to the planet, this planet actually casts a shadow on it. Anyhow, not that funny. Let's bring this about right about, let's say, now. So now I got a planet right here, and we're also going to fiddle with the atmosphere of this planet, because all the default planets that Terragen gives these planets are bluish. I'm going to change this to a different color. Go to the atmosphere of this planet, and click that plus button, and then as you can see, the atmosphere shader is atmosphere 02, so go to atmosphere 02. Now what we need to do is we need to change this little color thing right here. I'm going to change that to about that color. That color. And that should change the color of that planet. Yeah, it will. Anyway, you can't really see it. So, I'm going to give this a quick render. And you can do that by going to the renders and going to quick render, and it automatically will give you a small resolution with a low amount of detail and anti-aliasing. So just hit render, and I'll pause the recording. Alright, so here's the result we have right here, and it may be hard to see, but obviously everything's really low detailed and anti-aliasing, so there's a lot of sharp edges, like jagged edges, but we basically got the result we want. A cloud layer and these mountains right here. Pretty similar to what we want. Sorry. But there's one more thing that I like to do, and that is add a star field background. Now, Terragen 2 does not have the ability to create stars within Terragen, so we need to use an image or something that's just an image, yeah. So, close that. Go to Objects, and we're going to go to the background. Alright, and go to Surface Shaders, and as you can see, the surface shader at the moment is the background shader. We're going to change this. Create new shader, and go to Other Surface Shader and Default Shader. Don't worry about what this stuff means, because it's not important. So, go into the Default Shader, and go to Default Shader. A lot of stuff doesn't make sense to me, but anyway, that's just the way it is. What you gotta do is you gotta find a star field background. So what I found was a pretty good star field background right here, and this is what it looks like. So just lots of stars, and that's really all it is, and that will suit my need very well. So take that picture and assign it to the color image of your default shader. So I just clicked that, open image, and then chose image. Now I'm also going to go to the luminosity, and get the same picture. You can kind of see it over there, bad quality. I want to change the diffuse color to 1, and the luminosity to something like that, 0.2075, something like that will work well. That really takes care of a star field background. That's a very easy way to create a starry background. So I'll give this a re-render. Alright, so here is this picture we have here with, obviously bad quality stars, but that is really how to create this scene. Now, we could give this a final render now, and I'm going to save this as well. So just going over to my Terragen worlds. Okay, so now to the full render, I'm going to go to the full render, and with the free version of Terragen, you can only go past 800 by 600 pixels. That's what I'm going to do. Just hit the lock aspect ratio and go to 800 by 600. I'm going to change the detail to 0.9, I think, and also the GI sample quality to 3. Say that again. Now, you could give this a render now, which I could do, except that it does take a while to render stuff in Terragen too, so I guess I'll let it render. Yeah, let's just give this a render, so I'll see you when it's done. Waiting about 40 minutes or so. Alright, so here I am after about almost an hour. I guess my prediction of about an hour was, 40 minutes was a little wrong. So, here is a result that we have. That it's not looking that bad at all. Mountain is especially looking good. However, we still have some problems, and therefore we're not yet done. First thing that comes to mind is the sun. The sun has no glow at all. The sun has no glow because there is no atmosphere, and the atmosphere is what gives the sun its glow. So we're going to have to go into a different program and give it a glow. There are some ways to fake the glow in Terragen, but the easiest way, obviously, is just to create it in a different program. But everything else looks practically the way we want it to look. So, what we need to do is we need to save this. I'm also going to save this right here. Maybe I already saved it. No, I'll just save it again. Okay, and close Terragen. I'm going to jump into Photoshop, because in Photoshop I will give it a glow. Okay, grab the picture. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to zoom into this sun right here. And using this marquee tool, whatever, I'm going to change it to elliptical. I'm going to drag it over the sun while pressing shift so that it's a complete circle. And that's about a good size right here. I'm going to add a new layer, and also going to fill it with a white color. Now I'm going to double click on the layer 1, and I'm going to check outer glow. So now if I start making this size more, you can see that there's a glow. I'm also going to make it a little less yellow. About that. Okay. I'm changing it to normal too, the blend mode. Alright, so let's just find a good glow size fitting with the spread value and size. I think that'll work well. Okay, so now the sun has a glow. And also, I'm going to blur the sun a little bit because at the moment the edges are pretty darn sharp. So, getting the blur tool, the blur tool right here. Just, oops, gotta go to the main layer. Go to the background and start blurring. It's not blurring yet. There we go. Make sure that the blur tool on. Turn the pressure to 1. Don't blur it too much. There you go. That's good. Okay. So that takes care of the sun. The next thing we want to do, and this is a completely optional step, but I added some lens flare. It's not really a necessary step. You could just leave it as it is, or you could not. But going to the filter, and then render, and then lens flare, you can add a lens flare, because that's not the lens flare I want. That one maybe. Okay, that's the lens flare I used. So that is the finished result now. You can save this by pressing Control S, and then save it as a JPEG. Let's rename this to like Mountain 2 Lens Flare. Okay. So that officially, or not officially, that concludes this tutorial. I hope you learned something from the tutorial on how to use Terragen 2, creating a plant scene, and if you went down to the ground and started, and rendered the, in the atmosphere, probably would get a pretty darn good looking picture. But this looks good as well. So, thank you for watching this tutorial. Goodbye.